Hi, my name is Tatiana, and I am a doula. And this is my very first vlog. I had wanted to do this for so long, but I kept putting it off because I was thinking about perfection. I was thinking about, you know, my house is a mess. I want to set things up perfectly and I want to do everything right. But that was kind of keeping me back. And so I was thinking about this the other day, and there's so many things that I do as a doula, but one of the things that I've been studying for is to become a lactation consultant. So I've been studying for a while now, and I took the test, and I did not pass the multiple choice, and like failure is a part of life, and so I just figured that, you know what, I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to read the materials. And I figured, you know what, I'm going to read the lactation book through and through. Even though the actual instructions for the book are not to read it like that, it's actually, they want you to kind of use it as a reference book. I figured I would start with going through the entire book so that I actually do it. Um, so I think with this channel, I'm not going to just read about birth books. I'm probably going to read so many books that I have. I'm a book collector, but I don't get to always read the books that I purchase. So that's one of my goals. Also, I think with this series, so I'm starting with the lactation, the pocket guide. I'm going to start with this book, and then I'm going to read it end to end. And I'm going to start with that, finish it, and then I'm going to probably move to some other birth books that I've been wanting to read, and I have, but I haven't read them all the way through. I skimmed them. It's really hard to kind of take the time to read the things that you want to read because, if you are working as a doula, how much time and effort it takes to give to yourself. But then to learn new things, like and to sit down and read, it's a lot. So reading is going to be a primary focus. Also self-care. So like I have like all of these beauty products that I use. Um, like I do like a lot of work with my skin just to kind of give myself some time. So I'm gonna do that. So I guess I'll just start with that, um, and then I'll get into my reading. So I'm going to uh, start with some micellar water, and I'm going to just I use Drunk Elephant. I was actually in Japan a couple of months ago, and I saw it, but I didn't purchase it there. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try it out because micellar water is actually it's just a nice, refreshing thing to do. So I'm just gonna go ahead and purchase that. So I went over to Ulta and I I got it. It was sold out in a few places. Um, but yeah, I get a lot of compliments on my skin um, because I spend time with it. A lot of times I don't do a lot of things with my skin, but when I do, like I always make sure that I wear sunscreen. That's for sure. But when I don't have the time for a 10 step skin care routine, I make sure that I do a cleanse, I do a tone, and then I add in some my serums. But today, after my micellar water, I am going to. I've been using Paula's Choice. It's a great exfoliant, and it really helps with my skin. Gets my skin like really the pores down, and I don't know. I just feel like my skin it glows the next morning. So I'm doing this at night. before I start reading. So I'll start with this. I'll finish with this. Uh, then I'll add some treatment. So I picked up this glycolic acid from Kiehl's a few months back because I just wanted to have it separate. I know that there is different. There are different products out there that contain the glycolic acid, but I like to put it in the lines. I can't believe I'm like. It's so weird for me to do this because it's like it's very personal, but it's self care, and I'm probably not doing this like right. I'm not an influencer. I'm just a mom. I work and I'm a doula. So this is what I do. I'm probably gonna get flogged by the beauty people, but whatever. Then I'm gonna add my serum. So this is Corsex, the Advanced Nail 96 Mucin Power Essence. I like Corsex. I use their other essence. I like their essences in general. So I'll kind of put this on. Let's. I was gonna put on my mask. I have a loops mask, but I don't. No, I'm not feeling it today. So I'm going to just do that. Since sometimes, usually, like when I do put my serums on, I will go in with a gua sha, or I do. There was a wonderful woman online who she does a lot of facial exercises, and so I'll I'll do like little exercises like this to go over my lines, or I'll take the gua sha and I'll do the gua sha up and back, or I'll just take my fingers and go like this. I have a lot of tension in my jaw, so I just do this. I didn't bring all of my tools out. I just wanted to kind of do this because I know that I'm going to go to bed after I finish this, after I finish reading. So I just brought out everything that I could quickly think of. But this is La Roche-Posay, the Double Repair Face Moisturizer. I love this. I've been using this for years. I love it. So I'm going to end with the moisturizer. Now, I don't always put on sunscreen after. I don't know what the verdict is on it. The skincare girlies, please tell me because I don't follow all the rules, you know. Like I said, I'm not an influencer. I just do what works for me and I do what I like. I use the products that I like, and this is what has worked for me and made my skin glowing. So it is what it is. If I'm doing it wrong, then I'm doing it wrong. So, all right. Now that that's done, I'm going to get into the reading. So, a little bit about me. So, I've been a doula for 8 years, and I have been a community doula working in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and I've seen a lot of things, and I'll talk about that as I read through. But it's been an experience. I've worked for both in the community space and for private pay. Work with high paying clients, low paying clients, teens, all kinds of family situations, and I've learned a lot. But what I do know is that there is a need for more doulas. We need more doulas. There will never be enough doulas to match how many people are birthing right now. They need our support, especially Black women. So I wanted to add the knowledge of being a lactation counselor to my arsenal, because we know that breastfed babies, um, they have they are healthier. They're getting a lot of nutrients. This is not to shame people who decide to use formula. It's just that there are known benefits of breastfeeding and chest feeding. So I want to give those families the best chance. If that's what they want to do, I want to give them the best chance, and I can do that by building my knowledge. So let's get into it. The Pocket Guide for Lactation Management by Karen Caldwell and Cindy Turner Maffei. I'm going to read this book end to end, and probably the way that I'll do it is I'll go section by section. There's about 10 sections. There's appendix, glossary. As you can see, I've gone into this book. I've tabbed it. That's the way you're supposed to do it. But actually want to be a little more intentional and read through the sections. And so I'm going to read through section by section. I'll probably divide it by the section so that I can go in and reference. This is really for me. But if you get help out of this, then wonderful. So let's go. This is the cover. I'll just go ahead and read the back. So this is the 4th edition. The Pocket Guide for Lactation Management 4th edition continues to be an essential resource for new and experienced lactation care providers, midwives, women's health providers, pediatric care providers, and other clinicians who provide care to breastfeeding families. Convenient and easy to use, it offers problem-solving and counseling strategies for the wide variety of situations commonly encountered by those working with childbearing families. Topics include breastfeeding and public health, the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding for hospitals and birth centers, normal breastfeeding, and addressing challenges for both the mothers and babies' perspectives. The 4th edition was revised to reflect the most recent research in lactation care. It also features updates to the section covering the baby-friendly steps to incorporate revised global standards published by the World Health Organization and UNICEF in 2018 and updated appendices. So let's get into it. So the inside cover is typical colors of the stool of exclusively breast milk fed infants. So the typical color of stool in the first 1 to 2 days of life is that black meconium, sticky black. And then 2 to 3 days of life, it's like a greenish, it's like a navy green. And then 3 to 4 days of life, it's more of this lighter reddish brown. I remember when I breastfed my daughter, the seediness, definitely the meconium in the first couple of days, that big poop. My daughter, actually, when she was born, there was meconium and she had meconium in the sac. When the midwife, she did the rupture, there was a little bit of meconium, which is funny because I ended up having an emergency C-section. But it's funny because of all the births that I've done like a lot of births, and we've seen meconium, and the family went on to have a vaginal birth. But I had to have an emergency C-section because they saw the meconium. I think it was premature. Now, when I reflect on how much I had, which wasn't a lot, compared to what other families had. I think that if I were given more pain, not necessarily medications, but just other comfort measures, I would have made it. Or it could have been that I just needed an epidural, and maybe that would have helped me. So, the just the first side of meconium, that's not necessarily meaning that the baby needs to be delivered by C-section. The baby is in distress, but there are other methods that may be able to be used. So I'm going to go right into it. So that I'm going to skip the dedication. I'm going to skip the contents. Usually when I read books, so I read the front cover and I read the back cover. I skim through the contents just to see where everything is at. And then I usually, when I read books, I actually skim over it, each chapter really quickly, just to go quickly through the whole book and get a feel for the book. And then I'll go chapter by chapter, flip back and forth, and like really dig into the book. But for the purposes of this, I'm actually going to read the book. And I'm going to read the book wrong, so you'll see now. On page 9, this is how to use this book. So this handbook has arisen from our experience in helping new and experienced clinicians to hone their skills as breastfeeding problem solvers and counselors. We initially imagined this as a field guide to lactation care providers on the order of those available to naturalists and bird watchers. Sadly, our editors didn't think that the field guide to breastfeeding sounded attractive as a title. Nonetheless, we hope this book works as a field guide for you. It is not meant to be read from cover to cover, but rather to be dipped into when you are working with an unfamiliar question or problem, or want to explore some other possible issues related to a familiar problem. We use the term lactation care provider, or LCP, to describe those who are using this book. This term is inclusive of all who provide breastfeeding education, counseling, and support to childbearing families, from those whose work focuses only on lactation to those who provide other types of services. Because of the wide range of expertise among lactation care providers, please note that suggestions for treatment and referral of problems should be handled within the scope of practice of the individual reading this text. Since lactation care providers come to this work from many different experiences, disciplines, and backgrounds, finding common terminology can be challenging. We have endeavored to express concepts as simply as possible. Terms that may be unfamiliar have been defined in Appendix W. The book is organized into 9 sections, followed by 28 appendices, a reference section, and an index. Section 1 introduces the role of breastfeeding in advanced public health and explores the terminology used to define different intensities of breastfeeding. Section 2 establishes our Healthy Children Project faculty approach to lactation care. Section 3 identifies what normal, enjoyable breastfeeding, chest feeding looks and sounds like, and discusses the importance of following the baby's instinctive behaviors to establish a mutually enjoyable and rewarding feeding experience for the mother and the baby. Section 4 briefly describes the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding of the UNICEF/WHO Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, a set of practices that can optimize the establishment of healthy feeding relationships and mother-baby bonding during the maternity stay. Section 5 reviews the crucial role of community support in building and sustaining lactation beyond the maternity stay. Section 6 addresses breast and nipple discomforts those who breastfeed or chest feed may experience, such as sore nipples and clogged ducts. The format used in this section follows for the remaining sections, including questions for the caregiver to ponder, other related symptoms or problems to look for, strategies for resolution, other concerns to consider, and some tidbits from our 70-plus combined years of practice found in our opinion. Section 7 uses the same approach to discuss issues families experience in managing breastfeeding, such as timing, nutrition, and baby-parent separation during work or school. Section 8 explores common breastfeeding problems from the baby's perspective, such as latch-on difficulties, breast refusal, and milk supply. Section 9 focuses on other concerns that come up related to breastfeeding, such as maternal smoking, weaning, and illness, etc. Protocols for managing many lactation challenges may be found in appendices A through P. Other resources including contraindications to breastfeeding, the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale, and national and international policy documents focusing on breastfeeding are found in the remaining appendices Q through C. In addition to updating the evidence supporting many of the issues addressed in this text, we have made a few tweaks to update coverage of topics such as the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative Global Standards and revise several topics according to research findings. We hope you find this pocket guide helpful in your work with breastfeeding families, and we welcome you to communicate with us about how the book works for you. Thank you for all you do to get new families off to the best possible start. Karen Cadwell, and Cindy Turner Maffei, Healthy Children Project Incorporated. So now we're going to get to section 1, the introduction, and I'm probably just going to read this and go to sleep. It's 6 pages. It's 6 short pages. But yeah, so let's get into it. Section 1, introduction. Breastfeeding and public health. The need to improve breastfeeding behavior is a healthy priority expressed by the Ministries of Health in many nations as well as international authorities. And this is found in appendices U and V. In the United States, the Healthy People Objectives describes it in Appendix R have included since their inception targets for breastfeeding beginning with the year 1900. Improving breastfeeding duration and exclusivity have been linked to favorable health outcomes in the mother and the nursling. According to a systematic review by Kramer and Kakuma, 2012, the available evidence demonstrates no apparent risk in recommending, as a general policy, exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life in both developing and developed country settings. Meeting the challenge of improving breastfeeding duration and exclusivity requires understanding the reasons women stop breastfeeding exclusively or give up breastfeeding earlier than intended. Exclusive breastfeeding, predominant breastfeeding, breastfeeding, and complementary feeding. Exclusive feeding. Exclusive breastfeeding means that the infant is receiving solely mother's milk as its food source. The World Health Organization, WHO, indicates that infants included in this category may also be receiving oral rehydration solution, vitamins and minerals, and or other oral medications, but may not receive any other foods or fluids. Exclusive breastfeeding throughout the first 6 months is a target of many public health goals, such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the U.S. Healthy People Objectives by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services 2020, and encouraged as optimal infant nutrition in the policies of many health professional organizations. After the first 6 months, appropriate other family foods, especially those high in zinc and iron, should be added to the infant's diet while breastfeeding continues through the first year and beyond. Funny anecdote, this is not in the book, but one of the first foods that I gave my daughter was oysters, smoked oysters. I always loved smoked oysters, and I ate them when I was pregnant. She loves them. My daughter loves them, but smoked oysters are high in zinc, so that was one of her first foods. But anyway, I digress. Researchers and experts from around the world have concluded that there are very few exceptions to the recommendation. These include infants diagnosed with galactosemia may not breastfeed or receive the mother's expressed milk. They must be fed a special formula. This is the only absolute infant contraindication to breastfeeding. And this is by the American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, section on breastfeeding 2012. Infants diagnosed with phenylketonuria, PKU, may be partially breastfed, but also must receive a special formula. The amount of breastfeeding allowable will be determined by monitoring the infant's blood levels. Other rare metabolic diseases may impact the infant's needs. Premature infants may require additional minerals, calories, and vitamins. Some professional organizations also suggest 400 international units IUs of vitamin D daily, starting soon after birth for all breastfed infants. In some countries, all infants, because they may not get enough outdoor time or they may live in parts of the world that do not offer enough sunlight and exposure to manufacture vitamin D in their skin. AAP section on breastfeeding 2012. Another anecdote, I found out when I took my daughter to her pediatrician last, and she's a teenager now. She was low in vitamin D, and she told me that a lot of black and brown children and people in general lack vitamin D. And also, where we live, I'm in Jersey City. In a lot of urban areas with a lot of buildings, there's not a lot of sunlight that gets in. So there tend to be lower vitamin D levels, and she rationalizes because of these buildings that are casting shadows on us and blocking the sunlight that we naturally have lower vitamin D. And then add to it, we have a lot of sedentary lifestyle and we are indoors a lot, so we already have lack of vitamin D. So that's something that like really stuck with me, that being in urban areas does affect how much vitamin D in general we are getting. So yeah. In addition, they may have had sunscreen applied to their skin, which decreases their ability to make vitamin D. Concerns about future development of skin cancer have encouraged parents to decrease their children's exposure to sunlight. Other medical or nutrition conditions may require addition to the diet of the breastfed infant. Actually, let me just circle back on the sunscreen thing. So, there is a misconception around black people that we don't need sunscreen, and I've heard from a lot of black and brown families that they don't use sunscreen, and that's really alarming because since skin cancer comes to all of us, skin cancer is real, and things like shea butter or red raspberry oil, there are not enough, especially when you think about the UV rays that are coming, like in the environment that we live in. If we live in an urban area, it's really harsh on our skin, so we can't go raw dogging it without any type of sunscreen, because we will definitely feel those effects. So I urge folks, if you are everyone should be using sunscreen, but my black and brown people, please use sunscreen. If you want to use it in moderation, um, you know, take caution is what I'm saying, but don't go without, because we do get skin cancer, and it's a very real thing that's been downplayed by our communities. Okay, so back to what I was reading. Other medical or nutritional conditions may require additions to the diet of the breastfed infant. If the mother has a contraindicated medical condition, Appendix Q, is taking a contraindicated drug, or is undergoing certain radiation treatment, exclusive breastfeeding or any breastfeeding may require cessation, at least temporarily. See resources or medication used in Appendix Y. Exclusive breast milk feeding, EBMF, is a term used by the Joint Commission from 2015 to describe the feeding of an infant with only human milk. However, the method of delivery of human milk may include delivery at the breast, as well as via other supplementation methods via cup, syringe, at-breast supplementer, etc. The ideal option for each infant is to receive the mother's own milk at the breast. If the mother's own milk is not available, donor milk from a milk bank would be the next best choice. In the United States, the Human Milk Banking Association of North America member and or state licensed milk banks are providers of donor milk. The International Milk Banking Initiative lists milk banks around the world. Appendix Y. Predominant breastfeeding. Predominant breastfeeding means that the infant is receiving the mother's milk as well as water-based drinks, ritual foods such as teas, and oral rehydration solution, vitamins, minerals, and oral medications. WHO 2008. The predominantly breastfed infant is not receiving any other foods or drinks, including infant formula and other animal milks. Breastfeeding. Breastfeeding means that the infant is receiving human milk as well as any other foods or fluids, including infant formula. Complementary feeding. Complementary feeding means that the child is between 6 and 23 months of age and is receiving both human milk and solid or semi-solid food. That's from the WHO, 2008. The introduction of appropriate foods, especially those rich in iron, zinc, and protein, is crucial after 6 months of age. These and other nutrient-dense first foods help to avoid malnutrition and stunted growth, conditions which can have severe impact on child health and development, particularly in resource-poor areas. The United Nations Children Fund estimates that globally at least 1/3 of children under 5 years of age are not growing well due to malnutrition, and that's from UNICEF 2019. According to the WHO, and from 2003, complementary feeding should be timely, meaning that all infants should start receiving foods in addition to breast milk from 6 months onwards. 6 months onwards. I think in a lot of our communities, there's a tendency to add rice to milk to start feeding more, like, oh, the baby's hungry. We get a lot of peer pressure to start feeding stuff earlier, like 4 months, 3 months, and it's like we really need to wait to 6 months. But back to the reading. Adequate, meaning that the nutritional value of complementary foods should parallel at least that of breast milk. Safely stored, prepared, and served. Appropriate in texture and given in sufficient quantity. And these bullet points, it says it's modified from World Health Organization 2003, Global Strategy for Infant and Young Child Feeding. Retrieved from, and then it gives the URL of where it's a PDF. The WHO recommends that infants start receiving complementary foods at 6 months of age in addition to breast milk, at least 2 times a day between 6 and 8 months, increasing to a minimum of 3 times daily between 9 and 24 months. And that's from the WHO 2008. Additional nutritious snacks may be offered 1 to 2 times per day as desired. Breastfeeding is natural, not instinctive. In the past, the skills and techniques of breastfeeding were passed from one generation of women to another. Children grew up watching their neighbors and family members breastfeed. Sadly, with the rise in the use of replacement milks from the late 1800s onward, breastfeeding knowledge and skills have become lost, muted, and distorted. Applying technology to the problem through strategies such as improving nipple graspability or distributing breast pumps seemed a plausible solution, but these approaches were shown by research to be ineffective in sustaining either breastfeeding initiative or duration. Before I go into that, we know for black women, black women in America who were enslaved were feeding wealthy white families. They were not feeding their own children. So our children were left to other mechanisms of feeding while we were wet nursing other people's babies. And so that contributed, that past trauma has passed through our lineage, and it is perpetuated in our communities, and that's part of the reason why a lot of black and brown families don't breastfeed. And then add to it the popularity of formula, and formula being seen as a more civilized way of feeding babies as opposed to breastfeeding. That also discouraged black families from breastfeeding. I know for myself and my experience as a black West Indian woman from a West Indian family, the breastfeeding wasn't always encouraged. Formula was encouraged as something that was something readily available. And I made it my mission to breastfeed because I knew I didn't know everything about breastfeeding, but I wanted to feed my baby the best nutrition. And so a lot of black and brown women are up against this when we are trying to feed with the cultural differences in our families. We encounter these barriers. So just wanted to add that context. And reading this, I'm like, yeah, that happened, but from our experience, we know what happened to black and brown families. So the last page of this section, The closer examination of the reasons why breastfeeding is stopped, even when continuation is desirable, points to the following themes: concerns about milk quality, quantity, feeding problems during the first week, problems with the infant latching on or suckling, lack of appropriate information and support. In order to support breastfeeding as the cultural norm, all clinicians working with breastfeeding families should have access to education, coaching, and guidance about the management of breastfeeding. This text provides many resources and strategies to assist caregivers in helping breastfeeding families overcome common challenges and achieve their own goals. So, I have a lot to say about breastfeeding, chest feeding from my perspective as a Black doula, community doula in New Jersey, working in Newark, in Jersey City, all across the seaboard. um, I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I hope that this is going to help folks. As I said, I'm reading this book in a way that it wasn't intended to be read. It's not intended to be read cover to cover. It's really intended to be used as a guide. So you flip through it, you tab it up, you bookmark it, you make notes, you highlight it. That is the way to really use this. But I'm doing this for my own self. Just my self building to make sure that I've covered every single piece of content in it as my own self study. So I hope that this helps you, and I will be back for the next section. So have a good night.